Okay, Tariq, welcome to Pivot.
Thank you.
It's special because you're my brother, but it's also special because you're the kind of person I wanted to have on here to really understand your different way of thinking, your different way of living, and just general way of being that I feel differentiates you from most males I know. So you're a father, a husband, an athlete, and you work in...
I say entrepreneur, I guess.
Entrepreneur, okay.
Because it's quite a lot of different things. But yes, I have a successful business.
In which field?
In industrial metals.
Okay.
Yes.
So what do you think makes you unique? I know what I think makes you unique, but obviously I'd like to know why you think that you are different.
I think it's important to have structure in life. In my life, I like there to be structure and balance. I believe strongly that we have four selves. We have our mental self, our mental state, our physical self, our emotional self, and our spiritual self.
Yeah.
And it's, from my experience, I had a point in my life where I was like, okay, let's just work on my physical self. And then you realize that there's a lot missing with that.
Yeah.
So in terms of having structure in my life, it's important to work on all four of those selves. Yeah.
So do you know what pivot means in the context of this interview?
Briefly, that points in your life that made you go in a certain direction?
It's open to interpretation, but obviously I feel that people go through pivots in their life, and with that turn or that U-turn or that shift that happens within the pivot, there's usually growth. These pivots can be really big, they can be very small, but the impact that they have has led you to this point. So tell me about a pivot in your life that has been key in getting you to this point today.
There are quite a few. I guess we'll start with the early pivot.
Okay.
Which must be in school.
Which school?
Well, we grew up in the UK.
Yeah.
We grew up in a nice little country.
Wait, did I mention we're even twins? I don't think I mentioned that. I assume people would know, but we're twins. So,
yeah,
okay.
Yes.
So continue.
So we both grew up in the UK.
Yeah.
And we were in this beautiful countryside town or, village, sort of, not village, but it's called Reigate. And I have amazing memories from there. I loved it. And then we moved when we were 11 years old to the Middle East, to Jordan. That was definitely a pivot because obviously we grew up in quite a strict school and going to Jordan where it was slightly less strict with different rules, different customs was
language,
a huge change for both of us. To elaborate on that, for example, when we were growing up in that school, in England, it was strict. I had to walk on the right side of the corridor. I had to have my socks pulled up. I had to have my hair combed and carry a comb in my pocket.
Yeah.
If you didn't have one of these things, you get detention.
There wasn't much room to express yourself or have any character of your own. You had
constantly
to
scared,
yes.
Constantly afraid to make a mistake, constantly scared to step out of line. So I personally did not enjoy that. I think that's the wrong approach completely. Going to the Middle East, going to Jordan, really expanded my horizons because everyone's free, everyone's expressing their opinions, everyone's doing
yelling
whatever they want, but in a way where they respect themselves. And I like that. I like that side. I think it's also important to have manners because in the Middle East, for example, there's less manners. But there has to be a balance. So that was definitely a pivot, and that definitely taught me to open up more and not be afraid to express my opinions and not always say please and thank you and excuse me and just for the sake of it and sorry. I think that was a very important pivot. And then also another pivot, I think, when we were in Jordan, we lived there. I remember it was a career day and we were having a meal after school with my friends. and we got attacked by Marines
I remember this
in the pub, because I think we were 15 years old. And
why were you in the pub?
It's true. As you do.
What were you doing in the pub?
We had on suits because it was career day. So we looked older. Long story short, we got beat up badly. And it was kind of a traumatic experience. And after that, I realized that I never wanted that to happen again. So we went, I personally went into this different direction where that's never going to happen to me again. So I went down, this sort of martial arts route.
Wait, so were you physically weaker, smaller,
definitely
less strong before this point of
definitely
being beaten up by Marines?
Definitely. And then I decided every day I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to become very strong. I'm going to become indestructible. And that was my goal. That was a goal I had. And that is something I think that I've accomplished in this day.
I mean, those are two strong ones, whereby obviously your physical journey started post the Marines, and then the pivot from moving from the UK to Jordan was obviously a big learning in terms of what you want, in terms of your character, what kind of environment you want to live in. But I still feel they were both quite extreme. So you have the UK, which is it is what it is. It's strict and it's a bit rigid. And then you have Jordan, which is still the same. And somewhere in the middle would be great.
It's true. Again, in England, you're sort of in this bubble because it's so beautiful where we were. I have the best memories of Reigate. I really do. And I love my roots in England. But again, you're not exposed to what's really happening in the world. For example, you watch the news and you see, and you can't really form a proper opinion. When we lived in Jordan, most of my closest friends were Palestinians, for example, and we had Palestine and the Palestinian conflict on the left of Jordan, the west, and then you had the war in Iraq, and then you had the war in Syria, and then we were basically encompassed by these wars, and we knew really what was happening in the region, and I think that was something that people in England don't understand. So we formed this very real view of what was going on, and we were actually quite emotional about it. And you realize why people are much stronger in their views, in their characters, because
even just emotionally.
Yeah, emotionally. I think that that's a very important thing. So that was another thing where I developed an opinion, a strong opinion, which I don't think you can develop in somewhere like Reigate, because you're just in your own little very beautiful bubble. Being worldly, understanding what's happening in the world is very important, but witnessing it firsthand, I think, makes you emotional about it. So it's very important to understand what's actually going on. Yeah.
So I think people see you and assume that your focus is physical conditioning. Is that true?
It's not. No. So my whole view on life is there's 4 selves. You have your physical self, your mental self, your emotional self, and your spiritual self. And again, you can't just focus, in my opinion, on one of these things. You can't be in the gym 24 hours a day. You can't be studying 24 hours a day. You can't be in a therapist 24 hours a day. You shouldn't be meditating 24 hours a day. I think you're focusing on one of those things too much, and you're totally out of balance. And I get it. It's very important to do those things. But daily, my approach to life is to work on each of these things consistently. I think consistency is key. So yes, I will go to the gym for an hour a day, and I will do jujitsu for 1 hour a day. And I will learn my language every day. I speak now Russian, by the way, as well as Arabic and English.
I still can't believe that. I still find that hard to process. And when I saw you translating for someone in Russian, I was literally, my jaw was on the floor.
But that's the thing. It feels so satisfying to speak different languages, but you're also understanding an entirely new culture. So we grew up, I personally didn't know anything about Eastern Europe or Russia, and now that's where my wife is from, and that region, and it really gives you a deeper understanding of a different culture. Yeah. Anyway, so just to continue what I was saying, there was...
Well, but before you continue, you say you have these 4 areas of your life, okay? So can you name one thing that you do daily in each of those 4 boxes that you live by?
Definitely going to the gym, going and doing jiu-jitsu. That's
so physical
is that aspect for me. It's one of 3 things, to be honest with you. It's either my martial arts, gym, or yoga. Mm-hmm. And then you have the spiritual aspect. Yes, there is such thing as believing in meditation, believing in whatever it is that you use to connect. Religion, going to church, going to the mosque, whatever you think is your spiritual avenue to connect. This is my approach. And then... So
meditation would go in there?
I put meditation in there.
Okay.
Yeah. I think meditation is important. Your emotional state. Emotional state is a tricky one because I think it's very important to speak to somebody, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a healer, whatever.
Why do you think it's important?
Instead of bottling up what you're holding in, every day we encounter situations which make us feel emotional. Mm-hmm. And whether you hold the emotions in, whether you release them immediately, whether you're a temperamental human being, whether you're immediately going to cry, some people hold all that emotion inside them. But you have to somehow express that emotional state, somehow. So in order to gain that balance emotionally, you need to be able to get it in check somehow. Yeah. And I think that the only way to do that is to speak to somebody. That doesn't mean, in my view, unloading on your friends. I'm a strong disbeliever in that. I personally do not like when people come to me and hand me their bag of shit. And I'm like, please keep your bag of shit. Do not give me your bag of shit. Okay.
Take it back.
Take it back. Go and talk to a therapist and then come back and talk to me like a friend. I think it is important to keep your friends. Otherwise, people are going to complain about you and you're going to be that annoying friend. You don't want to be that guy. So you have that aspect.
So the emotional box, what is something that you do for your emotional well-being daily?
At the moment, I think it's not something that you have to do daily. If you do have your partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, you can talk to them in a way to discuss things that may have...
Like check in.
But if you have something deep that really upsets you, that you've been holding for a while, then I think it is very important to discuss that with a therapist.
Yes.
And not unload that onto your partner.
Okay.
So
it's more maintenance, like make sure you're just maintaining your emotional well-being.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. For me personally, I believe that jujitsu keeps me emotionally balanced.
Oh, then that's probably what you do almost daily.
Yeah,
to keep your emotional state healthy.
It does keep you grounded, and your perspective on life is very focused on. Everything is put into perspective because all you can think about when you're doing something like jiu-jitsu is survival.
Okay.
You just have to survive, and then when you leave that situation and go out into the real world to work, to your kids, to your husband, to your wife, you're like, okay, well, this is easy compared to what I just did. I had to just fight for my life, so I'm fine. Everything's put in perspective.
That's really interesting. That's perspective.
Nothing can emotionally sway you.
But is it healthy to have to go through that kind of fight or flight, adrenaline, cortisol, to then feel that everything else is
certainly not? I think
simple?
I personally enjoy it, but I also was I used to practice something like yoga, for example.
Okay.
So even yoga, jiu-jitsu, what they have in common is finding comfort in the uncomfortable. So for example, in jiu-jitsu, you're in extremely uncomfortable positions and you have to get out of these positions. Otherwise, you're just going to suffer. So it trains you to do that, In yoga, you're standing in a position which is, so all these very specific asanas, all these very specific poses are designed to open up your 7 energy centers. It's very powerful. It's uncomfortable because you have to hold these positions for quite a long time, and you have to learn to be comfortable there. When they say breathe, and there's a certain way to breathe. And in order to finish an entire practice in these poses, in these asanas, and actually have accomplished something, you have to be uncomfortable. And eventually, after lots of practice, you find comfort.
Well, I wanted to make that link between yoga and jiu-jitsu. It's funny that you've already brought it up. But before we move on to that, I want to ask you about the 4th box. So what do you do for your spirit? What was it?
So the spiritual was the meditation and and then the mental for me, the mental box.
That was the last box.
Yes.
Yeah.
So being mentally stimulated, whatever mentally stimulates you. So for example, for me, I have my work, my different businesses. I like to work on those, but I also like to learn languages. And for me, that ticks that box.
What languages do you speak?
English, Arabic, and Russian. Yes.
Well, French.
I did live in Geneva.
Yeah, I feel like you can speak French. I've heard you speak French.
I speak French, but much less so.
You speak better French than me.
I use French to basically travel around France and go to restaurants. I don't actually use it properly.
But what else would you need it for at this point? You're not exactly going to do a business meeting in French.
Exactly, it's true.
No, so it's 4 languages. Yeah. Russian, French, Arabic, and English.
Okay, yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, you've been talking about jiu-jitsu. To be clear, you became a black belt quite recently.
Yes.
And you've been practicing to get to that point for about 10 years at the Roger Gracie Academy.
Yeah, with the man himself, with Roger Gracie.
With Roger.
It was probably the hardest thing, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in order to achieve that goal. I think that's the most difficult achievement that I've ever achieved. It's a martial art which it beats all other martial arts.
Yeah.
In my opinion, without question. And I have done all martial arts. It's incredible. It's incredibly technical. To study it with Roger Gracie, who is the best of all time, was something special. That's actually why I started doing it, because I was living in London and I was working in a bank. Very boring. And I was playing football with one of my friends, and he suggested we try Roger Gracie, the best in the world at jiu-jitsu. And I was like, I don't know what jiu-jitsu is. And I went and I tried, and I had such a great time that I went back the next day, and I just kept going back over and over again. And just for the record, I lost every single sparring encounter for at least a few years, if not like 7 years.
Oof.
Yeah, it's
pretty demoralizing.
So if you have an ego, and you don't want to lose, it's not the sport for you. And now I'm in a point where it's almost impossible to beat me in jiu-jitsu, and I will say martial arts in general. And this made me what I want to use the word indestructible. It's an incredibly powerful martial art. What's nice about it is you don't have somebody punching you in the face for the whole class. It's very technical. It's a bit like human chess. You will react based on your opponent's action, and the smarter guy will win. The smarter guy will win that fight.
Yeah.
Again, it's extremely uncomfortable. So you have to find comfort in the uncomfortable. I stopped drinking initially because of jiu-jitsu, because you mentally you're exhausted, physically you're exhausted, and you will just not be able to train in this sport.
Because you need more mental clarity, or because you need
more drive, energy, motivation,
okay.
drive,
everything basically.
Everything.
Okay.
So initially I stopped drinking because of this, and now I haven't had any alcohol since I was 24 years old.
That's amazing.
I'm 35 now, so it's been a long time, and it's been it's honestly been a really great journey. And
So 10 years of no drinking, 10 years of going from white belt to black belt.
About 12 years.
Oh, 12 years.
About 12 years from white belt to black belt. And
I think that's the biggest commitment you've ever made.
yes, but again, I think that's also an important part of a man's character is to commit to things. I am able to commit to things, and when I do, I don't waver from it. For example, learning a language. If I say I'm going to learn a language, I'm going to learn a language.
Yep.
If I say I'm going to get the black belt, I'm going to get that black belt. So I think that's a very important thing in someone's mind.
Okay, so back to you were losing a lot of your sparring encounters. Because I know you're not a very competitive person. You're very athletic, but if you lose, you're not so bothered, and you've always been that way. You're not going to like kick and scream and have a tantrum when you lose, unlike me. So this is quite surprising, I think, for most people to understand when you're in such a rigorous martial art like jujitsu that losing, it doesn't bother you.
Me personally, whether I get first place or third place, I'm really happy.
What if you don't place?
That was something that took a while to get better at. When I first started and somebody was beating me, I wouldn't say I was lazy, but it took me a while to get the mentality of, I will not be in this bad position anymore.
Yeah.
I will be the one doing the beating. So to have that in your mind, to switch that mindset from being passive to aggressive, to the aggressor, to being the one who's actually going to win, it took a long time to get to that mentality. But it's much more satisfying, safer, and just better to be the person who's winning. Otherwise, you're going to lose. You have to have that mentality of, if I don't win this, I'm going to go home and I'm going to feel like I've lost. So my mentality changed immediately. Now, whenever I spar, I'm the one who's going to be winning. I'm the one who's going to be the nightmare, not vice versa.
Do you feel there's a parallel with that mentality, not just in jiu-jitsu, but in your life 100%. And the way that you handle your day-to-day life?
100%. If you're in a bad position, you have no choice but to get out of it. And that translates into life. You never allow yourself to be in a bad position, but if you are, fight. Get out of it. No one's coming for you.
Get out of it or turn it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally, you know, if you're getting beat up, or life is beating you up, who's going to come and save you? No one's going to come and save you.
Yeah, basically save yourself.
Save yourself. Like, get out of the bad situation. And you throw a tantrum, what's that going to do? Nothing. Or cry, what's that going to do? Nothing. You have to get out of it. Fight. Win. Hold that medal. Stand on the podium. Be proud of it. Yeah. One thing I don't approve of, though, is cheating. That's a big deal in jiu-jitsu now. A lot of people cheat and take steroids and take drugs and take things that enhance their...
I wouldn't even know how to comment on that. Why on earth would you compete in a sport and cheat?
It's a whole different discussion, but I'm highly against it because I personally would never do that. I think it's just really unfair. Yeah.
I don't see the point in even doing the sport.
I don't see how people can.
If you physically can't do it, exactly. If you physically can't do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Either do it fully and properly, or don't do it.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like this question. What would you need to see in someone to say to them, I really think you need to start jiu-jitsu?
I'm a big believer in men's health. I don't preach it because of the current climate that we're living in the world. But I think it's very under discussed.
You mean mental health?
Mental health.
Mental health
in general. Okay. Mental health. People don't talk enough, especially men, when they have problems. I mean, if you think about the pressure that men are under today, they have to get a job. They have to support a family. They have to get a home. They have to have kids. And now it's not just a job. It can't just be a normal job. It has to be like an extremely high-paying job. I think it's very important that men find balance, firstly. They have to get their life in order, remove all toxicity from their life, because that's what I did, and it worked for me. No one just is a success. No one makes a successful business like this. No one gets a black belt like this. No one is an immediate success. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of almost suffering to get there. So my advice would be to get everything in your life in order. And again, that means yourself. Work on yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Work on yourself. I see people, men, getting married at like 20, and I'm not against it, but I'm thinking to myself, how has this person had a chance to work on himself? Given you went to school, to university, you've had no chance to work on yourself or accomplish pretty much anything. And now that I'm married and have kids, I mean, accomplishing things for yourself personally is not easy, because you have a whole family to take care of.
The priorities are
different.
Yeah.
So if I saw a guy and he was single, and you could see he was suffering, and he was sad and upset, the most important thing is I would say, jujitsu is for you. Start it. Get perspective on life. Get physical. Get physically strong. Get mentally strong. Remove all toxicity from your life, and work towards your goals. I think that's another thing I wanted to discuss, is to set goals. Setting goals is very important. So I haven't discussed this actually before, but I have something called a vision board, and I
made me do one, actually.
Yeah.
You made me do one I have it on Pinterest.
It works. So I had things on this vision board for I'm going to say about 8 years. And it included, I won't say what it included, but let's just say everything on that board, which is shocking, whether it's to do with where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to have, how much money I wanted to have, blah, 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 blah. The houses I wanted to have, where I wanted to have those houses, what kind of bathroom I wanted to have, everything in detail. I went back to this vision board 8 years later, forgetting that I even made it. And I've got everything on that vision board.
It's pretty cool.
But I'm not just saying that. I have got everything on that vision board. So...
Wait, so you obviously place what you want. You go through your different life areas. You fill it with what you want to achieve, gain, learn,
I think
accomplish.
manifesting.
Yeah, manifesting, but manifesting is an overused word these days. I feel like, to say, oh, I'm just going to manifest it into my life. Oh, I want to, go on this trip. Let's manifest. It's very overused and it's a bit annoying. Like, I don't even like hearing it anymore, but it is a real thing. But I feel there is a process to it. There's a real process to manifesting.
And what I think that is firstly, get the books. Study everything. So as you know...
So what book?
So for example, as you know, I personally believe in really diving deep into studying how to manifest, all these qualifications and diplomas I got in health, in anatomy, physiology, nutrition, the list is endless. I got all these things, not because I wanted to open a business in it, but because I actually wanted to really understand it more than anyone. And I loved it.
But why?
I wanted to use it in my own life. Okay. And then I wanted to build a family and encompass it in my family. Yeah. So, one day I'm going to have, my kids are going to be, my sons are going to be older and they're going to ask me questions. I want to be able to answer those questions, and I want to explain very detailed about why this is good, why that's not good.
So it's for teaching. I feel like you want to be able to teach.
To pass it down, I guess, to my kids. I mean, the world we live in now, what people are doing for spirituality is shocking to me. Shocking.
Give me an example. What do you find shocking?
I don't want to judge, but for example, using drugs. I'll just use that. Using drugs and then saying, I had a spiritual experience. I don't believe in that. Okay. The last thing I want for my kids is for them to have a spiritual experience using, God knows what. And that to me is dangerous. That to me is dangerous. And I would be very upset to learn my children using drugs to have a spiritual experience. That's not how it should be, in my opinion. It should be organic. It should be done properly. There should be some soul searching. There should be some a way to connect which does not involve drugs.
Yeah.
And that's the world we live in today. Everyone keeps talking about drugs. Drugs is the way. This.
Well, there's microdosing, and then there's ayahuasca and going to the middle of the jungle.
But when I hear these things, it hurts my ears.
Yeah.
It hurts my ears because of all the work I've done and the benefits I've seen from that. When I hear people who drink a tea or have a mushroom and they're like, "Oh, it was the best experience in my life," but I can't remember it. I'm like, well.
So do you feel to a degree what they're doing is lazy? So taking a drug, having a spiritual experience is lazy versus putting in the work, which I'm assuming what you did. Well, I know what you did required a lot more work and time and effort. So do you feel like that's a lazy, quick fix versus real work that actually helps you?
Yeah, I think it definitely requires real work. I think it's very important to have help, to have guidance. But again, I think it's dangerous to go into this unknown spirituality. Yeah. And, I will say this. Spirituality is not just rainbows and butterflies and like light and there are the downsides. There's the dark sides that people are not aware of. And then, if you're not whole, if you're not healed, if you're not, full, it's dangerous. You're not protected. You need to understand what you're getting into before you how do I say it? Expose yourself into this world. It's just, there is a better way to do it. There is a more organic way to do it. And I think there's a safe way to do it. Let's say, something happens there's an accident in the street, something tragic. Because I'm in this state of, I feel stronger at my strongest version of myself. Nothing can take you off guard. You're just always ready. You're prepared. If something tries to take your emotions high and low, you're balanced. You're stable. It gets you in that stable state. Because when you do jujitsu, if you're too emotional about it, you're exhausted. You will lose. If you're under emotional about it, you're too lazy. You will lose. You need to be at a certain level in order to be at your best version of yourself, emotionally balanced and physically balanced.
So it sounds like jiu-jitsu keeps you in this optimal range that works for you emotionally. So that's amazing. Okay. So you feel strongly about men's mental health, and do you feel like it's overlooked?
It's definitely overlooked. But in this day and age, when you say something in order to promote some sort of men's health, you get attacked. And I don't like that. I think it's unfair. There's, men, especially men, are unlikely to open up, to expose vulnerability, which is fine. But when they do, they shouldn't be attacked for it. The pressures that men are under today are enormous. You can't just have a normal job. You have to build a family. You have to be the one who's responsible for taking care of children, taking care of bills. No one's taking care of, in my opinion, men. Mm-hmm.
And the thing, I think we have to clarify that when you say that, it doesn't mean that you're saying women
of course not, yeah.
are deserving of less. Or I think what happens automatically these days in this climate is when you're saying men's mental health requires more attention, men's mental health requires more focus. Mm-hmm. It should be focused on because men are less likely to express themselves and hence will be in a worse situation. You're not saying that women don't deserve that attention. So it's more like just listen to exactly what I'm saying and don't try to flip it.
There's a huge amount of depression, which I believe a lot of people are unaware of amongst men. And
maybe even within themselves.
Yes. And as I'm sure you're aware, the levels of suicide are much higher as well. Even people who I've known, and it's very, very upsetting, but it's very important to reach out and talk and discuss before coming to conclusions and judging. That's why I always tell people, before you look at someone and judge them, be nice, be kind. You have no idea what that person's going through. You know, a relationship with a man and his mother and his father and his sister, his brother, his son, his daughter, you have no idea what's going on in that person's life.
What holds you back from reaching your potential?
I think the most important thing to do is to firstly, set your goals when you're young, and to achieve those goals before you decide to get married and have children. I think once you settle down and have kids, it's not easy to set aside time to achieve those goals. It's not easy. And I think that will also create resentment towards your partner and towards your children, because you will have that thought in your mind. Luckily, I got married when I was 34, and I had achieved quite a lot of my goals before I got married. So yes, for example, I'll go back to jujitsu. I wanted to be a black belt, but I was a brown belt with a few straps on my belt. So I was right there, right at the end. So I was happy. And then I had my children, and then as soon as I had my children, I refused to give up on that dream of the black belt, and I trained every single morning. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I went to the training, and I did my sparrings, and I did my competitions, and doing that helped me to achieve my goal. But could I do that for 10 years? Probably not.
So what is the sacrifice that you have to make to achieve your goals and maintain this level of fitness, stamina, physical appearance? What something has to give. What's giving at the moment?
I truly believe it's removing toxicity from your life.
Well, yes, but you must be sacrificing something. What do you feel that you're sacrificing at the moment? Is it sleep?
So I was going to say sleep.
Okay.
So yes, I do force myself to wake up early and train, because during the day with work, with family, it's not, you don't, like, there's no time.
Yeah.
There's no time. So yes, sleep at the moment. But again, you have to be committed. You have to have that mentality. You have to set those goals.
Okay.
Yeah. And what's important, before I forget, is to put those goals out into wherever you just like say them, put them out, write them down, put them out there, and then let them go. Like, let them go. Don't hold on to them. Like, don't say, oh, every morning I want to achieve this, I want to achieve that. Oh, why isn't this happening? No. Like, put it out there and let it go. Say, this is what I want. I'm just putting it out there.
So detach from the thing that you've written down.
Exactly. And then
completely. What
I truly believe worked for me was having faith. So whether your faith is Christianity, Islam, just spirituality, believing in something higher than yourself, whatever it is, have faith that something is moving. Like, I always picture this. Imagine, zoom out from the world, and you see the world. It's moving. The clouds are moving. Everything is changing. Everything is moving in your head. You believe this. Everything moves so that you will achieve your goals. It's moving for you, and believe that. Yeah. Don't have any doubt. It's moving for you, so you will become the best version of yourself. Yeah.
How do you feel younger men should behave in response to upholding traditional values that may be outdated?
I think our generation is more aware. I think we want our children, our sons, the next male generation to become the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
By giving them confidence, by giving them inspiration, not putting them down, not shouting at them all the time. Obviously, raising them with manners. I mean, you have 2 kids. I'm 2 boys, and they're older than
I have 3
than
kids,
mine.
but I have
you
2
sorry,
boys.
3 kids, but you have 2 boys.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you?
I mean, I think healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
It's so much easier said than done, but healthy boundaries, respecting them as much as possible without, I mean, eventually you crack, eventually you end up shouting, but I mean, if you can minimize that as much as possible, great. Healthy boundaries and encouraging their self-esteem, their self-confidence. And as you said, I just feel that if you're encouraging them to be the best version of themselves in every single way, even within those 4 boxes that, you push, which is mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical, then no matter what happens or no matter what route they take in life or they choose to take, because it is their choice to make, I think they're in the best place they could be in.
They'll
really.
eventually find
So whether
balance.
it's traditional, whether it's not so traditional, you have to respect it in a way.
100%. And to not disrespect everyone else. Based, if their beliefs are different.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem now. If you have a slight disbelief, you get attacked by
or a belief that's different to the norm.
I heard something the other day. It's almost rebellious to, be religious. It's almost being a rebellious thing. It's almost rebellious to be a straight traditional guy.
Yeah.
That's not. So, and if you're not totally unique and different, then you're weird.
Or if you're not completely open to absolutely everything, then that makes you
I'm not
rigid.
against that. I'm not against that.
Yeah.
But don't force me to do something that I don't want to do.
Yeah. Respect respect me and what I like and what I want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Respect everything. And I think that's, respect everyone else's decision.
Males tend to have a difficult time with the male figures that they look up to. So it could be a father, an uncle, a brother, but you tend to see quite a clash between the male figures that the younger ones will look up to, and especially as you get older, you learn, you come up with your own opinions that may clash with the male figure. But how do you feel about this? You
grow up. When you become an adult, you realize that those people you idolize and look up to, they're not perfect, and you have to forgive them for that. You can't think everything in that guy's life is perfect.
Yeah,
they're still learning. The way I'm still learning in jiu-jitsu, I'm a black belt, but I have so much to learn. With languages, I have so much to learn. With my spirituality, I have so much to learn.
Yeah.
Emotionally, my goodness. I mean, yes, it's important to be emotionally mature, but there's still so much to learn.
Yeah.
So, again, forgive those people you've looked up to for their flaws. Everyone's got flaws. Appreciate people for their flaws, and try and help them to become educated. Try and help them if you can get through them somehow. Do what you can. I did it through example. So just really quickly, I was a vegan from 2012 to 2019. I had a long time. And, my family thought I was nuts. But did I become much healthier? Yes. Did I become... it changed my life in a good way. But I changed... Even after 2019, I changed that again because I wanted to find better balance in my life. Mm-hmm. So, but what that did is it showed someone like my dad, who never thought being vegan was a good idea, that it is better to be slightly more plant-based, for example. And that changes people who you look up to. They incorporate your lifestyle into their life, so because they can see it's working. Yeah. They can see it's better.
Actions over words.
Yeah. I wanted to say that nobody is perfect. And actually what I think is important is to appreciate people for their flaws. Even if their beliefs are like, you love what they say, you love what they do, but they believe something which is so against what you believe in, and therefore that made you so upset with them that you can't stand them anymore.
This was great. I actually didn't see this conversation going where it did. I wrote down more questions to ask you, but I really love where this conversation went. How are you feeling?
Good. I don't speak this much usually.
That's true. It was amazing to have you. And welcome to Pivot.
Thanks.
See you soon.
See you soon.